Today is September 22nd. I want to welcome everybody to this committee hearing today. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Tony Cardenas. We have several consent items and a couple of items for discussion. At this point in time, I don't have cards from the public, nor do we have a quorum, so we will proceed. The actions that we take will be communicated from the chair until we get a quorum. With that said, welcome back, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
I didn't know you could run that fast. If you could read,
Love my job.
You were jogging. If you could read item 2.
Item 2. CRA and CAO reports and joint resolution relative to transfer of funds to the Department of General Services for construction of sidewalk improvements at the corner of First and Alameda Streets in the Little Tokyo redevelopment project area.
Okay, on that item, we'll adopt the CAO report. That brings us to item 3.
CRA and CAO reports relative to cooperation agreement with the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety to provide facilitation services for development projects related to the biomedical and/or the clean green technology industries within the Adelante East Side and Central Industrial Redevelopment Project areas.
Okay, we'll adopt the CAO report on that item. I'll let you read item 4, but it is my intention to continue that item.
All right. CRA report and joint resolution and CAO2 report relative to contracts for landscape architectural design services and construction related to city-owned street medians in the Western Slauson Recovery Redevelopment Project area.
Okay, we'll continue that item. Item 5.
CRA report and resolution and CLA2 report relative to various actions necessary for the amendment of the North Hollywood redevelopment plan, including expansion of project area boundaries, reinstatement of eminent domain, time limits, increase in bonding capacity, and proposed merger within the Laurel Canyon Commercial Corridor Redevelopment Project area.
Okay, we'll adopt the CLA report on that item. Item 6.
CRA report relative to a report back on 11 redevelopment project areas scheduled to expire in the next 5 years, including when the parcels and related tax increment will be returned to the general fund.
Okay, we'll receive and file the CRA report. Item 7.
CRA report and CAO report relative to review of project environmental effects and loan agreement with Ltsc Community Development Corporation and LDK Senior Apartments for the LDK Senior Apartments Affordable Housing Project.
Okay, we'll adopt the CAO report. Here's another item that will continue, item 8, but if you could read it anyway.
CRA report and joint resolution and CLA2 report relative to Broadway streetscape actions to amend and enter into community development block grant contracts with the Community Development Department to accept $1 million from Consolidated Plan Program Year 35, extend Consolidated Plan Years 34 and 35, time for performance, and amend and enter into contracts for design and architectural lighting plans.
Okay, we'll continue that item. Item 9.
CRA report and joint resolution and CAO to report relative to execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for payment of $490,000 to perform engineering and design study, drafting, and plans for proposed construction to underground approximately 1.3 miles of overhead facilities along Cesar Chavez Avenue.
Okay, we'll adopt the CAO report. Item 10, we're going to continue as well, but if you could read that item.
CDD report and CAO2 report relative to authority to sell properties located at 12243 Blakely Avenue and 5510 South Manhattan Place.
Okay, we'll continue that item. Item 11.
Los Angeles Housing Department and CAO reports relative to acceptance of grant funding for 4 grants, approval of related authorities, and execution of agreements with the State of California Department of Housing and Community Development for the Local Housing Trust Fund program and the Building Equity Growth in Neighborhoods program.
Okay, we'll adopt the CAO report. Item 12.
CRA report relative to a report back regarding grants awarded to the CRA in the 2009-10 budget and the status of outstanding grant applications.
Okay, on that item, we'll receive and file the CRA report. That brings us to item 13, which we will continue, but please read it into the record.
CRA report and CLA 2 report relative to pre-approval of the submission of grant applications pursuant to Los Angeles Administrative Code, Section 8.99.04.
Okay, we will continue that item. The items that we've just gone through, Mr. City Attorney, at this juncture will be being communicated from the chair. And just as an aside, Mr. City Attorney, Anne Marie some time ago had accused me of favoritism where related to you being away from your job and when she was away from her job. And I've had weeks to reflect on that, and I have to concur that she was correct. And so I owe you, and I will take your pound of flesh, Anne Marie. I do not show favoritism in this committee, so I will make it right. I make that commitment.
Any chance to make him blush is, it's a good time.
Time to go away.
Well, you know, it's not uncommon for grown men to go play with trains, and I think that's what he did. I think, and all the way to Denver.
He has a long...
Okay, that brings us to item number 1.
Item number 1, communication from the Council President relative to the appointment of Ms. Carmel Stella to the Industrial Development Authority Board of Directors.
Good morning. This is we have just been joined by Ms. Perry, and before we start, I'd like to give her a moment to confer with staff about the actions that we've taken to see if she's comfortable, and then we can just make that a recommendation from the committee, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thank you so very much. That's a good color on you too,
Question,
Jan.
Terry, on all the
Yeah.
those actions?
Okay, good to see you again.
Thank you so
And
much.
this is Eric's appointment, or the president's appointment. Why don't you let us know why you want to come back for more?
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for considering my reappointment this morning. My name is Carmel Stella. I'm a Community Development Officer with Wells Fargo, and in this capacity, I work to promote affordable housing and economic development in low and moderate income communities. As you know, I've served on the IDA approximately a year, filling the term of another member, and this is an opportunity to serve a full term, and it's been an extraordinary experience of being able to review economic development projects in a very challenging time, and I feel that I've made a contribution in my expertise through my professional capacity and my history of working at City Hall, and it's just been a tremendous opportunity, and I welcome the opportunity to serve further.
Okay, so you just filled out a term for...
Correct.
So how long did you actually have before?
A little less than a year.
Oh, okay. What do you think you're going to do differently this time now that you're more experienced? You were there for almost a year. And this is... How long is this one? This is a couple of years.
Exactly. I think the ability to review projects and be able to discern which ones are viable and able to move forward. But also, I think the economic climate perhaps might be improved as my tenure continues, and it's been, as you know, a very difficult time and difficult to generate projects that might be suitable for conduit financing. So I think that might be changing as well, and I'm hopeful about that.
Any other questions?
I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Stella before. She was in City Hall. She's extremely focused and very competent. So I think we're fortunate to have someone like her to volunteer their time this way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
Yes. Thank you again, Ms. Stella, for all of your volunteer work you're doing for the city, and look forward to having you continue to do so. But I have a question. Can you describe for me the Wells Fargo Community Development Group?
Sure.
What exactly do they do?
We're the group within the LA Metro region of Wells Fargo that works to promote, as I mentioned, affordable housing and economic development. And in that sense, we're out in the communities. We identify opportunities. We help support financing. We bring in the right partners to promote an affordable housing development. We bring in a loan fund. We help facilitate the funding of a loan fund, for example, at VEDC and other really strong partners throughout the city. And we're really the relationship managers with nonprofits as we work to address the many needs that the city has.
When you say relationship managers for not-for-profits, I know that Wells Fargo sends me a letter every year and reminds me how many grants they actually gave, small and large, throughout the community of Los Angeles. Does your department, is it involved with that as well?
We're involved in terms of being a partner with the Wells Fargo Foundation, so we might identify a nonprofit that might be a good candidate for funding through the foundation, so we might make a recommendation to the foundation. This is a good opportunity to help support this organization. But what we might do as well is say, well, this organization also has an affordable housing project. How can we help the financing on that project? Who else can we bring to the table? So we really try to take a holistic look at the nonprofits in addition to the grant funding that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but the actual philanthropic arm of Wells Fargo, they make those actual decisions?
Correct. And that's done through the Wells Fargo Foundation, which is a separate group from my group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, without objection, then we'll recommend your appointment to the council later today. Thank you so very much. At this time, Mr. City Attorney, we'll adjourn the regular meeting and we'll move to the special agenda meeting, and that item would be special 1. If you could read that, Annalee.
Los Angeles Housing Department report relative to recommendations for the 2010 Round 3 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Availability, and report back regarding Affordable Housing Trust Fund policies and activities.
Okay, Russ, who? And I should make this announcement that next Wednesday we will meet in the Public Works Room at 7:30 to deal with the RSO study. So that should be exciting, and we will be in Public Works, so I anticipate a big crowd. Good morning.
Morning.
So what are you here, just watching them? Is that what it is?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members. I'm Tim Elliott with the Housing Department. The Housing Department is requesting authority to issue a third Notice of Funding Availability under the Affordable Housing Trust Fund this year. This is different than our normal operations. Somebody's described it as a bonus round. We were requested to report back on the feasibility of implementing a mixed income approach, which is different than our normal 100% affordable projects. And so we've proposed a pilot program to help us reach into areas that we haven't been able to fund 100% affordable projects. So we think that by buying into market rate projects to increase affordability, that we can provide housing opportunities in high cost areas where we haven't been able to reach before. So we're proposing $8 million in home funds to be set aside for to essentially purchase affordability covenants in market rate projects.
I know this is something Mr. Reyes has had some interest in over the years.
Right. We think that at this point in the market, there are opportunities out there that we haven't seen before, that land prices have come down, and there's some movement that would enable us to perhaps reach neighborhoods that we haven't been able to house people in before.
Such as?
Well, there are high-cost areas like CD11 and other places where they have been underserved in terms of affordability, and there's anecdotally, we've heard about sites that have gone back to banks and so forth that are coming on the market at prices that basically we can afford now. There's a lot of market rate developers that are struggling, and they need some help, and in exchange for some affordability, perhaps we can make the difference and move some of those forward.
Okay, so what other components are in there?
The other components are, we have a energy efficiency block grant.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. How much money are we talking about for this?
$8 million for the mixed income program.
Okay, so now, the other program, and how much are we talking?
Okay, we're talking about $4.7 million in energy efficiency block grant funds. Those are stimulus funds that we got from the Federal Department of Energy, and they're aimed at increasing the energy efficiency of existing affordable housing projects. We've heard that a number of the older buildings that were rehabbed years ago have systems that are antiquated, and we feel that we could lower operating costs and increase energy efficiency. So we're aimed at $500,000 per unit, per project, and we want to see energy efficiency and water reductions of at least 20%, between 20 and 40%. And we're partnering with Enterprise Community Partners. They've got a program like this in San Francisco. They've gotten seed money from HUD.
So they're going to not match, but they're going to add some money to the pot as well?
Well, they are going to pay for energy audits for nonprofits, which from some of these funds that they have from HUD, and that would normally be a cost to the city, and they're going to help us with technical expertise in terms of ranking the projects, in terms of who we would expect to see the highest energy efficiency gains from. They've got modeling and some experience doing this that we don't, and so we think this is a natural fit. That money needs to be committed by next January, so we need to move forward very aggressively to try to get applications in and get them ranked and back to council by that time. The other components, and I'll let other folks talk about it, is the Neighborhood Stabilization Program 2. There is a requirement to 25% of the money has to serve very low-income people less than half of the median income, and that's hard to do for home ownership. So we're looking at rental opportunities. That there are rental projects that have gone back to banks, and that the kinds of organizations that we normally deal with may be able to access those properties, and we'll use the NSP funds as we would with any of the other federal funds that we have to either rehabilitate or build new projects in the neighborhood stabilization target areas, which are.
How much money are we talking about for that?
$35 million out of the $100 million NSP 2 funds. So we're trying to meet that very low income goal. And the final component is we actually have some foreclosures of our own. There's some small rental properties that the housing department has either acquired through tax sale or has foreclosed on, and I think in one case had purchased for a nonprofit that has gone out of business. So those have fallen into disrepair and have high vacancies, and we want to move those to more capable hands, and we're willing to accept proposals and provide rehabilitation financing. We don't have a set figure on the amount of money that's going to take, but we expect to take back paper for the value and provide rehab financing. And there are high vacancies, and we expect that there are groups out there that would want to access this opportunity.
So you want the rest of your team to identify themselves so they can prove that they came to work this morning? We'll start here.
Krista Klein, the Housing Department.
Doug Swager with the Housing Department.
David Zates, Portfolio Management.
Does anybody have anything to say?
Free for questions.
No, you have something to say. Just say it, and I think Mr. Cardenas has a question. It looks like he's revving up and ready to go.
I'm in charge of the green program, so if you have any questions on that.
Okay. So overall, though, the total we're talking about, what was that? About $52 million, and then you don't know where it relates to the other properties.
Right. We have some estimates on the rehab value, and it's somewhere south of $2 million, but people will tell us. We want them rehabilitated to a certain standard, and the proposals will be ranked, assuming we're oversubscribed in proposals, we'll rank them on the cost effectiveness.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas.
When you say rehab value of approximately $2 million, you're talking about the end value or the current value?
Just the cost of construction of the rehabilitation.
Okay, the rehabilitation
Cost.
would be about $2 million.
Somewhat less than that.
But I'm not holding you to a number, you're just giving a round figure that you expect it with $2 million or less, it should be able to satisfy that.
Yeah, there's 24 units altogether, I believe. And, I mean, some of them are fire damaged and boarded up. They're in very bad state of repair.
24 units across how many different parcels?
Or
There's
different
four.
properties.
4 different
Four.
properties.
Now, one of them may be a development opportunity. It's a very large house in a multifamily zone that may be a tear down, but, you know, or it could be a group home. We'll entertain proposals either way.
Okay. Now, you said you're with the housing department, but what exactly does that mean? Because the housing department has, what, a couple
Big
hundred,
department.
few hundred people working for them?
Yeah, I think over 600. I oversee all the home ownership and housing rehabilitation programs, including the neighborhood stabilization program.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about a low-income requirement, which is kind of difficult to meet that with home ownership.
That's correct.
But what's the income level?
It's about, well, for a family of four, it's less than $40,000.
How much?
It's less than $40,000 for a family of four, I believe. And Doug, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very low income. And it's just very hard even in today's market to structure a home ownership program to meet that kind of.
How about the model, I forget the name of that organization that Jimmy Carter is associated with, what's it called? Where they
Habitat
build
for
houses,
Humanity.
sweat equity, Habitat for Humanity. Doesn't that model fit perfectly with that?
Yeah, the model does fit perfectly with it, and we are talking to two different habitat groups in LA, one up in the San Fernando Valley, another one that works primarily in South LA, to use other of the NSP monies so that they could develop on sites that we've purchased with the NSP, and they would assist people at that income level.
Because when I'm thinking about the 24 units, I would think that maybe that's a combination of those 24 units that were just described that we basically own, and we want to get them out of disarray and back into the hands and to the individuals or families who can occupy them. And then we have this requirement that to do home ownership we find very difficult. Perhaps there's a combination of those entities that could actually satisfy both of those issues that we're faced with. Does that make any sense? Or just be honest, way too much brain damage, way too much work for very little return. What's going on here?
I think the second answer is correct. David Zate's portfolio management. I look at these projects from afar, see about completion timelines, and once they're completed, they come into our portfolio. Because Habitat's using sweat equity and volunteers, timing is an issue. Also, some of these projects are not would not qualify for NSP because they were purchase projects. We purchased them; they weren't foreclosures. So, given timing issues and given that some are not NSP eligible, two of the properties are not NSP eligible, I think it's best because of the conditions of the properties. These are right now C&D properties that would go out to RFP, look at the proposals, and look at ones that can be done on a timely basis, can be done on a relatively economic basis, and have good operating programs.
And there are time constraints. This is stimulus funds, and it needs to be spent by 2012, all
2013.
2013, but half of it needs to be spent by
In approximately a
2012,
year.
yeah.
2012. So doing ground up homes one at a time, especially if it was a subdivision that had to go through an entitlement process, would delay us. So I think the idea of stimulus funds is that they're looking for shovel-ready projects, and there may be projects that were proposed to be condos that could be converted relatively easily, and we just want to expose this to the market and see what we get.
Well, it's pretty sad for us to admit that we're a city that actually controls the permit process, the zoning process, and we have these funds in our own hands. It's pretty sad for us to admit that we still feel a little nervous about being able to utilize funds through the next 2 years and into 2.5 to 3 years. And be a little nervous about that, so therefore, certain options, we really are honest with ourselves and kind of put them off the table because we really can't feel confident that we could actually meet the deadline. Go ahead.
Good morning, Councilman. Rushmore Cervantes with the Housing Department. The amount of money we received in NSP is significant, $143 million total once we accept the NSP $3, which is $9.88 million, to acquire the properties, and to the level of rehabilitation work that is required on many of these properties is significant. And to go through the procurement process in targeted areas that we're looking to do to have significant impact on communities, and then have quality craftsman work done in these homes that are to green standard and to code, takes a significant amount of time and effort. So the concern is to get these properties, the money spent, and good quality properties in the targeted areas. As it relates to the 25% of the properties, or excuse me, the money's being spent for 50% AMI and below, we're able to actually get individuals in some homes. It really depends on their qualifications. There's a home that we just recently sold in the San Fernando Valley to a family that was 50% AMI and below. There's thresholds of dollar subsidies that we provide, up to $75,000. So if there's a qualified individual at 50% AMI and below with that 75% subsidy that meets qualifications with credit, has enough down payment, then certainly that will be the case. That's a good opportunity for home ownership, even at 50% AMI and below. It has to be a good fit, and has to be a family that will be able to sustain ownership of that property. So it's on a case-by-case basis. As far as going out to the NOFA for the multifamily, that's certainly another option to address the 50% AMI and below. In addition to that, we're working with the Housing Authority to acquire homes, rehabilitate them, and sell them to the Housing Authority, who in turn will offer them up to 50% AMI recipients and below. So there's a combination of ways we're going about targeting the 50% AMI and below. We've also, as Mr. Swigert indicated, we have had conversations with Habitat for Humanity. There could be properties where the rehabilitation costs are so exorbitant that we may just demolish the property and turn it over to a nonprofit such as them to be able to build a home. And we're also looking at that option for ourselves, because the quality of the homes are so poor in certain parts of the city that we've acquired, because the goal has been to acquire the worst of the worst, because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Even the investors won't go in. So we're going to buy the worst of the worst right now. And some of the rehabilitations are so costly that now we're looking at the option of demolishing and putting in a new home. So we're contemplating that, and we're going to come back to council with an alternate proposal to how to implement this program.
So organizations like Habitat for Humanity, they do or don't do rehab, or what I mean by that is they'll do rehab or not, or they only do new construction.
I'm aware of them doing new construction. They may do rehab, but I'm not aware of it, Councilman.
Okay. I think it's about time we ask them if they do rehab, because I think that what has happened is, I know the only reason why I know about Habitat for Humanity of what I've seen on TV. It looks beautiful, it's awesome, people cry, they finally get a home, you know, after all that time or what have you, and they finally have stability in their life and for their family. But, you know, I've never asked them the question about what the gamut of their abilities are or the kinds of projects they're willing to entertain. And I'm not sure that our department has asked those organizations that question. I'm not saying you have or haven't, but I haven't heard that you have. So rather than assume, why don't we ask them?
Well, I think we're meeting
if
with
they engage in rehab as well.
Certainly. Well, actually, we're meeting with them tomorrow or Friday, so we'll be asking that question.
If you put that on the list, I'd like to know what the answer is.
We'll get back to you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Perry, did you? Okay.
We're going to have a report back on this in 30 days anyway.
Yes. Okay. Then, without objection, we'll adopt the Housing Department report and ask the CLA and the CAO to report back on this item. With that said, let me ask a question. We did adjourn the regular meeting. Yes, sir. Okay, so I can ask you the question, Anne-Marie, is there any more business before us in this special meeting?
No, sir.
Then this committee is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And remember, next week, 7:30, downstairs, Public Works should be